September 6th is the date when Bank of Canada will announce their next rate hiking decision, whether they're going to raise it or keep it at the current level. That is going to be the decision announced on September 6th. And right now it is all speculation right now, because everybody's trying to predict whether Bank of Canada is going to raise interest rate or not. But I think nobody knows except the governing council of the Bank of Canada's committee, and this is when they will actually discuss and announce on September 6th. But if you look at the data, we saw the job numbers. It's kind of, unemployment is climbing up. We're seeing the job vacancies is rising, but the unemployment is also rising at a much faster rate. And we saw the economic data came out on last Friday, and according to that, the Canadian GDP shrank at a 0.2% on annualized basis, and this was against the forecast of 1.2%. So the forecast was 1.2%. The economy came out at 0.2% in second quarter, and mind you, Bank of Canada was forecasting it at 1.5%. They actually already revised it down. Initially they were looking at the forecast of 2.7%. and they revised it down to 1.5, and the actual economic data came out at 0.2%. So that's how bad the economic condition of this country right now. And much of that growth, 0.2%, it came from services sector. The manufacturing, the mining, the housing investment, construction, it's all shrinking. And this is when the Stats Canada was undercounting the non-permanent residents, not by hundreds, not by thousands, by 1 million people. Yes, you heard it right. So Stats Canada is actually undercounting the population growth, by not counting the non-permanent residents after their visa is renewed. So they're making an assumption that, whoever comes on a non-permanent residence visa, they are going to leave this country. But in reality, majority of the people do not leave. They stay in this country, they renew their visa, they convert this into a permanent residence, and that was the flaw in their methodology. So when you look at the GDP numbers, when you look at the inflation data, when you look at the job numbers, all of these numbers are taking input from Stats Canada's population stats. And if that number is flawed or incorrect, think about the other numbers that it is feeding into, how accurate this is going to be. And the policymakers are making decisions blindly by looking at the data published by Stats Canada. So this is so embarrassing that this country is becoming a banana republic where we cannot even count the data. And let me tell you something. All of this data that Stats Canada is publishing, it's all based upon some surveys. So they send the surveys out to the public, they collect the input, and then they make sense of it. That's how these numbers are being made of. Right? This is not the actual reflection of what's happening on the ground. So that's the joke of the day. And if you like it, give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and put your comments down below. So when you look at all of this data, it is hard to predict what is going to be the next move by Bank of Canada, because inflation doesn't go in one direction. It goes like this. So we saw the inflation came down in the last quarter, like 2.7%, and then it spiked up again. And this is because inflation, goes like this. So bringing inflation down sub 2% or sub 3% and keeping it at that level, they're two different things. This requires a consistent monetary policy that is going to put a downward pressure on the inflation forces. So we are seeing a lot of inflation forces across the economy, rising mortgage cost, as well as oil prices, the carbon tax that has been imposed. We are seeing food inflation because there's a lot of still some supply chain disruption that is causing this inflationary pricing in the food chain. So all of these are actually creating, and then let alone the global geopolitical situation with the war and everything, all of these things are adding inflationary pressures into the economy. So I think in the long run, we see the inflation is going to be sticky, which suggests that the interest rate should not come down to like 3%. What we've seen in the last 10 plus years, that interest rate was, around 3 or sub 3%. That era is gone. So I don't think we should be able to see that level of interest rate anytime soon because of all those inflationary pressure that I mentioned about. And think about the repercussions. As soon as the Bank of Canada reduced the interest rate, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to blow up the housing market again, and nobody wants to see that, especially the politicians, because that is going to be a political suicide for all of those policymakers, and nobody wants that, because a stable housing market is good for everybody. The pumping real estate market is only good for a selected individuals. So I think in the long run, this is very dangerous for this economy if we keep inflating the housing bubble. It has to be at a sustainable growth where the majority of the people should be able to take part in that cycle, right? I know it is already expensive, it is already out of approach from a lot of people, but it needs to be growing at a sustainable rate, not like 30% year over year. So anyway, this is just my thoughts. Let me know what you think, and put your comments down below, and tell me, what do you think Bank of Canada should do, and what will be the next rate hiking decision? So let me know what you think, and if you like this video, give me a subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.